Yeah, we're good. We're rolling. We're rolling.
We're
All
rolling.
right. Uh, yeah. So I hope people don't mind my fit today. I'm just kind of. I've been just booling around at my brother's house. Up visiting family, doing some stuff. I felt like not taking a shower before this thing.
I mean, you
Just
look kind
keeping
of
it
angelic just with the intensely
right.
white background.
Yeah, yeah. Right. It's portraying a good figure of me. I should do the podcast here more often.
I mean, you have the silhouette of a thumb, just with the way your hoodie is wrapping around your face. But it's a celestial thumb.
Hey, you know what? That's what separates us, that opposable thumb. But yeah. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about coaching and kind of just some different things around that topic. Pretty broad strokes for today, not going to get super specific about things. Um, we're just going to kind of get into like what is coaching to us and kind of what important things we feel like and why Christian and I do certain things. Kind of, I guess, our philosophies around coaching and whatnot. So, um, it sounds like we were talking about before this, Christian, and you have some stuff that you wrote down kind of to guide the podcast. And so I'm going to let you kind of start us off with the first thing you mentioned before about kind of what is coaching to us.
Yeah, well, thanks. One of us had to have our stuff together this morning. But yeah, I think a good place to start is what is coaching in general, broad strokes. So we had a conversation kind of around this in our programming podcast. So this is pretty similar to that in that I think of coaching as creating and cultivating the conditions for success. That is what you are trying to do as a coach for your client,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of their age or their sport, anything. You want them to succeed and you're trying to set that in motion for them. So a little bit longer definition that I thought about was a coach is a professional who recognizes the need to foster a relationship and leverage that relationship to help the client realize their potential and ultimately reach their goals. So I do think of coaching as a professional relationship. And I think of it that way because when I think about being a professional versus like a very chill, nonchalant, I personally am more motivated to excel when I feel like I'm in a professional setting. So I'm coming at this from, of course, like I want to be likable. I want you to like me. I want to have a good relationship, but also I want you to know that I am taking this seriously, that I am doing my research on how to be a better coach, how to do things better for you. And when I have that mindset, I know I perform better.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point that you bring up about is it more of a professional relationship or is it more of I guess, a friendly relationship, right? It's not to say that if the relationship is a professional one, it can still be a very friendly and on a personable basis. I think a part of when I think about coaching, being personable with whomever it is a really critical thing. Just because, everyone has different goals, everyone has different needs or things they want to get out of their coaching sessions or their training program. And so in order to, serve that client the best, you have to know who they are and, not just their physical traits, what they can and can't do or what they want to get to, but also, their personal life and, how everything needs to fit in. And so, yeah, to me, when I think about coaching, I think about almost like I use the word like guidance, right? Like I'm just guiding you along this journey to help you get to where you want to be. It's I don't think as coaching that I'm recreating the wheel by any means, but like you said, it's keeping up on what does the research say, what's kind of the best way to practice this profession and giving that to the clients. And so, yeah, for me, it's a lot about kind of like a personable relationship that is guiding the individual on this journey, um, and really just trying to guide them to a more healthier life, meeting whatever goals that is, and then, going from there.
I think there are three major tenets of coaching, at least for me, and this is how I process the idea of coaching. One is going to be any coach needs to know and rely upon the general scientific principles of human performance. So you have to have an excellent understanding of strength and conditioning. I think making sure you know a lot about motor learning and motor control is imperative, especially when trying to teach someone movement skills. You need to know how to coach movement, how movement um, is generated by the body, and how to manipulate that or how to guide that, to use your word. And I also think you need to be pretty dang good at psychology
Hmm.
because, like we're saying, you're trying to build a relationship, and that is all about psychology. So understanding that fundamental science is important. And then the one thing I will
Hmm.
tack onto that for coaches like you and I, and as physical therapists, is we're really good with injury prevention. So I think any good coach should be thinking about how to um, use injury prevention principles in their practice. So that's number one. Number two would be experience. Like anything, you have to get reps. You need experience to know what to do, what not to do, and that brings up knowledge versus wisdom. I like the classic saying of knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing that it doesn't belong in a fruit salad. You have to have lots of experience to be able to use that wisdom to make really good decisions for your client. And a lot of those good decisions, or at least the best ones, in my experience, come out of your own personal failures as a coach. If you haven't failed, I don't think you're going to be good. You have to know what failure is like and learn from those mistakes and deliberately practice how to be better for your clients in order to be the best coach you can be. And then the third thing to me is intuition, which really comes from a solid understanding of those scientific principles combined with
Hmm.
experience. That's going to lead to you making those subconscious, those quick, those gut decisions, gut reactions, without thinking too hard about them.
Hmm.
And I think the more knowledge and more experience you gain, the better your intuition is going to be. And the last thing I'll add on to intuition is you need variability in experiences. So we'll into this more later with one of the questions about what a successful coach looks like. But something that I find has been very useful for me, and I'm sure you will too, is that we're physical therapists. Our experiences in physical therapy are highly varied. You might have it working with 10-year-olds, working with 80-year-olds, anywhere in between, every level of sport performance. And let's say you're coaching a squat.
Hmm.
A typical personal trainer is going to have a very small niche of people that they work with, and they're coaching squats within that narrow range. Physical therapists, especially orthopedic therapists, we coach squats in that huge range of people, their ages, their genders, their experience levels, their injury status. And those squats are going to be a lot more variable, a lot different
Hmm.
than the ones your typical personal trainer is going to see. And in that variety, in that different exposure, we're going to learn a lot more about how to help our clients. And that's just going to make us have far better intuition about what a person might need in the moment because we've seen so many different permutations of the squat.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I like what you mentioned about making errors or having failures, right? I think just about any profession, that's where you learn a lot from. And I don't know, I think if you ever meet, let's just use, since we're on the topic, a coach, or like a strength and conditioning specialist, and they're like, I'm freaking perfect. I've never made a mistake in my life in this job. And then I don't know how much I would trust that individual. Um, I mean, I can definitely remember some times where it's like I look back and it's like, oof, maybe could have made a better decision on, that program or the choice I did for those individuals. And yeah, kind of speaking and again going back to our, I guess our formal trade as physical therapists. I almost look at physical therapy as, you're rehabbing individuals, but you're also coaching them, right? It's a mix of jobs when it comes to being a PT. And I think that's what makes really good PTs as well, is being able to not just rehab someone, but help coach someone through things. And kind of like your example, you used the squat. Yeah, I think back to patients I have right now. Like I have a 13-year-old female as a patient who it is, we are breaking down the very basics of a squat to, you know, eliminate certain unwanted movements in her lower extremities and trunk position and all those different things. And it's like she's trying to take some information and through a fire hose, so we have to be very judicious in how we break things down versus my 88-year-old patient who, like, he just wants to get out of the chair without falling down, right? And so that when you look at that one, it's not as much of like we need to make your squat look perfect. It's how can we use different strategies so that what you have right now in terms of strength and balance, coordination, etc., how that is going to be able to make you successful by using those different strategies. And so I think being able to have that background and bring that into coaching, and applying those different principles to athletes or active individuals or people who've never really traditionally trained to squat before and being able to talk them through that because we have such a wide range. I think that really helps, I guess, in our setting, make us successful as coaches.
Yep, totally. So that's more of a general introduction to our thoughts on coaching. So now let's go into this. This should be a quick one. Who is coaching for? Who needs a coach?
Mm-hmm.
I personally think that a person who's a good candidate for a coach is someone who cares about their performance, but more importantly, someone who likes to do things well. You want to know that you're not wasting your time with your training, and you want to make sure that the elements of your training plan that you're doing are likely to lead to success.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to think less about what exactly you have to do. Am I doing this right? Is this a mistake? Is this not? And focus more on doing the things. And while I haven't personally had a direct coach in a number of years, I kind of like to receive coaching in different ways. So I used to purchase programs all the time
Mm-hmm.
from reputable companies like Juggernaut Training Systems and Barbell Medicine. Even more recently, fun, goofy ones from companies like Pen and Paper Strength App. Those companies make really fun programs to do for any kind of lifting. And that's essentially coaching. They're providing me a plan that I need to execute.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trusting in that person or that company to have a plan in place that's going to make sense for me, that I'm going to do it, because I didn't want to have to do all that thinking. I wasn't in a place where I could do that, and I wanted someone to take the wheel there, and it worked out great for me overall. But then, over time, I wanted to get a little more specific with that coaching. That's where I personally got really into programming myself, and now I take care of that largely on my own. But anyone who wants that kind of help could benefit from a coach, and it's just a matter of to what extent do you need that coaching relationship to be involved in your life? Is it just here's a exercise plan, you go do that, or do you need weekly check-ins? Like my buddy Noah, for example, he's a professional endurance coach. He has several different tiers of his coaching service, and his highest level tier, which is really designed for like international athletes, Olympians. He talks to his athletes almost every day, definitely every week.
Yeah.
He's creating their workouts workout by workout, basically. Yes, he has his
Mm.
framework that he operates under, but he's looking at all these clients' needs in real time and creating those plans. Like that's not what everyone needs for sure, but
Right.
that's
Right.
the level of coaching that some folks need to excel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is just where's your desire or your motivation when it comes to, training or just overall lifestyle, right? I think for me, when I think about coaching, I definitely take a 10,000-foot view on what it is. Like very broad strokes in terms of just like, what is it that you want to get better? I wouldn't say that I'm very much pigeonholed in terms of like high level endurance athletes like Noah is. Which that stuff is, I mean, quite frankly, I think that's just super badass, being able to work with people like that and do that stuff. Like that's sweet. And I would say that's not quite where I am. I'm more of a just, I would say in general, like, all right, like what goals do you have? Is it just getting in shape or not just getting in shape, but even more broad, like do you just want to be healthier, right? Improving things like vital metrics, like your blood pressure or your blood sugar levels, that type of stuff, just so that you're an overall healthier individual. Like, let's talk about that. Let's get into that, because that stuff can be, you can go so many different routes when you're thinking about just more broad strokes in terms of your lifestyle or having a healthier lifestyle, that is. And I think the biggest thing is just people who are motivated. Like I said, um, people who are motivated and take what we have to say pretty seriously and run with it. Um, I think if you have that type of individual as a client, you're setting up breeding ground for success. And it's not to say that someone isn't motivated. Like, I know I should get healthier. I know I want to do this, but like, gosh, I just, I have a hard time with getting in the workout or altering some lifestyle choices. And that's completely fine. We just have to start somewhere, right? And we'll get into this next about, kind of what makes a good coach. But I think a lot of that has to do with the psychosocial component of being a coach. So
Yeah, so let's get into that next. So the next question is, what makes a successful coach? There's going to be a number of
yeah,
things, no particular order on these, but the one I'll open up with is this is going to what you said about taking a 10,000-foot view. I think something that's really important that all good coaches recognize is that coaching is a numbers game. And as a coach, we're not only trying to increase your absolute ceiling of your performance, so you get like
mm-hmm.
a massive squat PR, or you win this championship, you place your medal in this race. Like, that's certainly going to be a goal for you. But I think a more helpful mindset is to focus on raising your performance floor. And so
Mm-hmm.
a simple way to say that is, I want to know that even on your worst day, you are going to perform to this level. And that level right there is moving up and up. Because if you only focus on hitting home runs, you're going to
Yeah,
be really inconsistent. And it's going to lead you down a path that's less likely to be successful for the athlete as a whole. But if you focus on, in that example, just increasing your hitting percentage, just hitting more often, you are more likely to make moves that lead to you winning, or you contributing very positively towards a team effort. And
mm-hmm.
I guess the thing I'll finish on with that thought is, I take more of a systems approach, where I know that, and this is kind of comes from the physical therapy background in me, is that I
Mm-hmm.
know if I have you do certain things in a certain way, good things are going to happen. I know that if I
Mm-hmm.
have a very solid strength and conditioning program for you, your individual performance level, your individual affordances of your strength, your agility, your endurance, that's going to go up. As long as we follow it and you do it, it's going to go up. And then from there, what's going to happen? You are going to have more potential movement options, more ability to interact in your environment, in your sport, with an opponent that you didn't have before. And those new opportunities, because of that foundation of performance that you've built, are going to lead to you making new decisions and new self-discoveries,
Mm-hmm.
because you have those new abilities. And it's with those self-discoveries where really cool outcomes emerge. But that probably wouldn't have happened if we have a system in place for you to get better and perform better, fundamentally,
Yeah,
and lead to you having that self-discovery. So what are your thoughts
yeah,
on all that?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think part of when you're talking about, let's hit more singles and home runs, right? Get that batting percentage up, and sticking with that analogy, I like to look more at like the mesocycle, right, versus the microcycle. And so these are different training cycles throughout the really like the training year, macro, meso, and then micro cycles that we can break down as coaches or strength and conditioning professionals to kind of, again, using the word guide to guide your training and to meet certain goals. And, when we're hitting for singles every day in that microcycle, it might not seem like we're coming closer to that goal at a fast speed, right? But if we know that persistency and consistency will lead to those singles adding up to a lot of runs overall. And then when you look more at like that mesocycle, it's like, dang, take a look back to where we were, several weeks or a month or two ago, right? And staying consistent, just making the smart decisions day by day, even though they might be smaller decisions. Not only have we gained or got closer to those goals of healthier lifestyle, or if it's losing weight, or if it's improving strength numbers, whatever it is, but now we're just creating better habits too, right? And so now we're just creating better habits of our lifestyles that's going to carry more weight going forward, because once we're done coaching with someone, now they have the tools, they have the ability to maintain that on their own. Sometimes once you get done working with a coach, you kind of lose that accountability, you lose that guidance. And if you don't establish a good tool belt for yourself and knowing, how to do some of this stuff on your own, and then people can regress. So I think that's a really important aspect to it as well.
Yeah, and so sticking with that, like a major thing that I like to make sure I focus on is how can I keep this athlete consistent? That is number
Mm-hmm.
one. That sort of
Yeah.
like goes back to the systems things I was saying, where like I know if you do certain strength stuff, you're going to get better. We just got to get you to do it. So how do I get you to do it? How do I keep you consistent? That is where you certainly have to have a good relationship, good rapport, which I'll come to later. But you got to figure out how to keep the client mentally and emotionally engaged with the plan, because the more engaged you are, the more likely you are to do the work. Even if the work is not the highest quality, even if it's like 60 or 70% of the quality you can put in, you showing up and you still doing that amount of effort over a long period of time, over the mesocycle, over the macrocycle, that is going to add up. There's a really cool paper that my good friend Benjamin had me read some years ago. It's all about small wins, how
Mm.
when you focus on these like massive sweeping changes, yeah, good things can happen, but usually that's not how change occurs. It's just not really human nature. It's not really what seems to play out well in life and business and sport. It's
Mm-hmm.
those small incremental changes over time that lead to these massive changes when you look over some kind of time horizon. And if you can figure out how to continue to get small wins, before you know it, these bigger changes, these bigger wins have occurred. And that's really stuck with me. It's something I really focus on. And so I strive all the time to keep my clients as consistent as possible. If I wrote you a 4-day week program and you're only going once or twice because the other two workouts aren't fitting into your life, or like there's just some movements in there that suck and you don't like them, they're not motivating,
Mm.
that's my mistake. I need to change that because I need you to get to the gym more often to help you reach whatever physique or strength goal you might have. And so
Yeah.
that is just something that I'm always working on, is just what levers do I pull to make this more fun, make this more engaging, so you're ultimately more consistent. Because if you're not showing up, you're not doing the work, I don't care how good of a exercise progression, how well periodized your plan is, doesn't matter. If you're not doing it, you're not going to get the benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a tenet that I'm sure you use as well, and I use in physical therapy as well, right? Um, if I have a patient in the clinic, or if I'm treating a football player on the side through the business or something like that, and it's like if I give them 7 things to work on, and it's like, if we could do all 7 of these things, like we're gonna be hitting home runs. But like the likelihood that that fits into their lifestyle and their schedule and their overall, ability to just keep doing that day in, day out, week in and week out, like just like in PT, how you can get burnout, the patient or the client likely at some point might reach a burnout spot, right? And then now that consistency is going to go down. So a lot of times, I ask patients all the time, like, how is your home program going? Is it too much? Is it too little? Do we need to adjust things? Are certain movements or exercises too difficult? Or are they too easy? right? And adjusting it on that level. I think that's really important. And also to just continue on with this idea of consistency, um, one of the best classes I've ever taken in both undergrad and grad school that still sticks with me is blanking on the exact name of the class, but Professor Mettle from Winona State, I'll name drop her. Uh, every HERS major in undergrad had to take a class on basically motivational interviewing. Well, that was a big chunk of it, right? And being able to be a good motivational interviewer, that to me is one of the things that really sets apart good from great coaches, especially with people that might be having a hard time with the consistency part of it or with the motivation part of it. And I think that having that tool in our tool belt to really help people along is a fantastic thing to utilize. Because again, if we can write up the best program that's ever been created, like you said, Christian, but if people aren't, if the clients aren't going to be consistent with that, or if they, are lacking the motivation or energy to do it, and it doesn't matter, right? We might as well have just written up nothing, right? So I think that utilizing tools like motivational interviewing is a crucial part of maintaining a successful, not just relationship, but program as a whole.
Well, I know you didn't plan this, but you going into motivational interviewing was the perfect segue to this next point, because what is the number one pillar of motivational interviewing? It's empathy. Empathy. You have to have that. So the next point I was going to make was, what makes a successful coach is it's someone who has had to struggle themselves. They have gone through similar struggles that you are going through, or you might go through, or you have gone through. And this is personal to me in that I, growing up, was always a good athlete. Playing sports, running, whatever it was, a lot of that stuff came natural to me. I find it easy to pick up movement skills
Mm-hmm.
and be pretty decent at them very quickly. But the thing that I really had a hard time with, and this is when I started lifting, was I discovered I'm not a very good strength athlete. Like, I just, for some reason, I don't make great strength adaptations very quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just something that I've really had to work towards a lot. Um, and because I've struggled, because I've had to do all these different things, different programs, different companies, different, obviously teaching myself all about strength and conditioning and programming, and just grinding program after program, year after year to make these small incremental changes. Uh, I've learned a lot. I've gained a lot of wisdom in like how challenging this stuff can be for people who don't get really strong really easily. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that has provided me a lot of empathy for my clients, and knowing that, okay, I know that this program is hard. It sucks. You're not excited about your progress, but I promise you, we have these systems in place. I know they work. Now we have to keep you consistent with them. Recognize that it's not going to be easy for you. It's not as easy for you as it is your friend who got a
Mm-hmm.
100-pound PR on their squat within 1 year. Like, okay, fine, great. I got 15 pounds. that's
Yeah.
that's just the freaking reality, and this is the way it's going to be for you, and I know what that's like. I've been there. I'm
Yeah.
still there, but you need to struggle um, as that coach to really be the most helpful for them. Elite athletes where everything came easy to them, not to discredit their hard work, of course, they certainly do that, but things come easier for them um, due to genetics, or they have more affordances like money, or they have coaches early on in life, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
They can still become excellent coaches, don't get me wrong, but I think the best coaches often are the ones that have had to put in that sweat equity, and they know what it's like.
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears coming from you, Christian, over there.
More so tears, just like,
Right.
why do I suck?
And suck. It's a safe space. You can let it out. You can talk about it. No, yeah. I mean, that's a great point that you bring up. When it comes to that side of it. And I think that's also why you see a lot of physical therapists a lot of physical therapists, when you ask them like what got you into the profession, almost maybe I shouldn't generalize too much here, but it seems a lot. It's like the common narrative is like, oh, when I was in high school, I broke my leg and I had to go into PT and all these, and it leads to that interest or that wanting to get into physical therapy. But kind of like you said, a lot of PTs, they've had those injuries. Like myself, that's how I got into PT. I've massively screwed up my left shoulder in baseball, and I had to do PT for a while. That's how I got into it. And now every time I see a patient with shoulder pain, it's like I hear you, man. Shoulder's tough. Like it sucks. It's not fun. Very complicated joint, and it's like I've definitely had my struggles, my surgeries, etc. with my left shoulder, and it's like that allows more insight as to what they're feeling. Kind of like you said with your example with the strength component.
Yeah, and sticking with the whole empathy thing, one other point I was going to bring up was that it really helps if your coach is also trying to be good at the thing that you are trying to be good at. So
Mm-hmm.
I personally am trying to increase my PRs on whatever strength movements I'm training at the time, other sports, and I feel like if your coach isn't doing that and they're not really invested in that sport, in that process anymore, that's it's a tougher sell. It's hard for you as the coach
Mm-hmm.
to make the most empathetic decisions for your client because you've
Yeah.
just gotten too far removed from the real struggles and what they feel like. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that's super important. Assuming your coach can still do it. Maybe they're really old or they have an injury, whatever it might be. If that's not the thing, they should definitely be doing the sport that you care about.
Yeah.
They or get who wants to have their lifting coached by someone who doesn't really lift anymore, who isn't trying to also squat or deadlift or whatever PR. You
Mm-hmm.
want your coach to know what that feels like. Um, and also, it helps to have been derailed as the coach.
Mm.
You and I are always having some kind of injury. You're still recovering from a very major one that we see all in our clients. Your
Yeah.
meniscus tear. Like
Yeah.
having those injuries and still finding ways to be consistent, still moving the needle towards that progress goals.
Mm-hmm.
That that's what it's all about. We are literally doing it ourselves. Where yes, we know like we've read a lot about how to do it, but it's also different when you combine that reading with literal experience for yourself and then taking all that knowledge, that wisdom to your client. That's like next level coaching to me, is if you've been
Yeah.
hurt and you've gone through those, or you have the older we get, Eric, you've got different work requirements, or you're starting a
Mm-hmm.
family. All those things, knowing what that stuff's like for your client, yet still being able to persevere and make a great plan is fantastic.
Right. Yeah. And I just want to clarify here. I'm not currently starting a family. Just want to get that out there.
Not you. Well, just a dog
But
family now. You've
oh,
got
dog family.
you
Yeah,
got little
absolutely.
Willie.
Yeah. Yeah. Willie's she's a handful in and of herself. Yeah. So I'm basically a parent. I'm just kidding. Anyways. Yeah. No. Absolutely. The going through the struggle is an important aspect, I think, of being a good coach. I mean, you want people to practice what they preach. If not, then there's a little bit of hypocrisy in that, right? And so I think that's a good point that you bring up. Another point that I wanted to bring up when it comes to being a good coach is, I think there's a lot we can do, but when it comes down to it, you've mentioned this earlier, Christian, about one of your, I guess, tenets of being what's important to a coach, but having a solid foundation of the physiology, of the strength and conditioning principles, of knowing the research around sets and reps and how can you manipulate those for individuals. Um, knowing the research around recovery and knowing what's true and what's kind of BS research out there when it comes to it. And so I really urge individuals to do their due diligence when it comes to picking a coach when it comes to that, right? Like ask those questions, even if it might sound like a dumb question. Ask those questions about like, tell me a little bit more about the background of the science about what we're doing, or like, why did you choose this, or how. Ask people like, what's your understanding on physiology or strength and conditioning, because you're going to take them by surprise. I don't think a lot of coaches are ready to have to answer those. But two, you're going to get a good understanding if they really know it or not. I think that when you ask those questions out of the blue, I forget who, there's a famous quote out there, but like if you can't explain a complex idea simply and then you don't truly understand it, right? And so like if you ask that question to a coach and they go on a 20-minute rant talking in circles and you're like, I'm lost in this situation right now, chances are that they're well meaning and they probably do know what they're doing in the long run, but it I think it is paramount to have a coach that you trust in their knowledge in what they're giving you. So I encourage people to ask those questions. And also the other thing, I feel like there's a lot out there now, and it can come from a place of people marketing themselves, right, to say, hey, I offer these types of services through different modalities or different things that they can do to your body that, they're more passive things, right? Um, and so if that's like an infrared sauna, or if that's some type of recovery technique, some type of machine that allegedly allows you to recover better or whatever it is, I hesitate a little bit with that. If your coach is pushing something that you've never heard of before, or there's not the research on it, if they're pushing a product onto you, I get a little bit hesitant with that, in terms of they probably, again, have well-meaning intentions and whatnot, but there is a lot of stuff out there when it comes to conditioning, strength, recovery, kind of the whole gamut of things that quote coaches will do for you, that yes, they sound really cool on paper, and yes, they might have things that preliminary data or theory base of this should work and this should be a really beneficial thing for me. But when you really look into the research of it all, there's nothing that really proves that it's going to help you. And you're probably going to end up paying a lot more money to utilize those services to that individual. And those things are very passive, right? Like we talked about, we want people to be able to grow their tool belt and be independent with things once we're done coaching with them. And if part of that time is doing passive modalities to quote improve your physiology, I guess that's a broad stroke of meaning different things. And then what happens when you're done with that, right? Are we going to just keep paying hand over fist for these different things because that's what we feel like is what's going to get us better and keep us better throughout the rest of our life? Or can we educate and give more independence to individuals so that once we're done coaching them, they're frickin' set and ready to go, right? They have the knowledge, they have the tools to do all these things on their own. And I'm not selling a product to you for several $100s so that you need to pay that to me for however long you want to keep working with me. And then what happens when you're done working with me? Now you're no longer getting that whatever, let's just keep using the word modality is, right? And so yeah, that's my little rant on choosing coaches, and knowing, does your coach really know what they're talking about when it comes to the science of this all? And also, are they pushing a product on you, especially if it's a passive product, like, you're just sitting in some machine or you're lying on some, whatever it is, and it's more of a passive thing. Well, what happens when you're done working with them? You don't have access to that unless you want to pay a couple $1,000s to get that in your home, which, I mean, if you have that disposable income and you think it's beneficial to you, and by all means, go for it, right? I mean, I tell my patients all the time, I'm sure you do too as well, Christian. I'll have patients that ask me like, hey, should I be going to a chiropractor for this as I'm seeing you? And I'll tell them, hey, if it's worth your time and money to do that and you feel like it's getting you better, and then I encourage you to keep doing that. And I mean the same for myself as well. Like if you're coming to PT to come and see me and you don't feel like it's worth your time and you don't feel like it's worth your money, well, then let's talk about that and how can we set you up best for future success. I always try and talk with people about that. I don't want people to think that, oh, they're kind of giving me the runaround and they're keeping me as their client so that I'm just paying them more money every month, which again, going along what makes a good coach, I think that makes a fantastic coach. People who are humble enough and have the perspective of being able to be open and honest with their clients and their patients and just be straight up. Hey, if you don't think this is helping you, or if you don't think this is worth your time and money, and then I want to get you to someone who will be worth your time and money so that you can get better. Because at the end of the day, it's not about me or you or our business making money or whomever. It's about the client or the individual getting better and reaching their goals.
I like what you said about how your client should be open to talking to you about what you know about a thing. Like, hey, Eric, please tell me what you know about strength and conditioning as it pertains to me and this goal that I have. Like, what do you think needs to happen? And having that
Mm-hmm.
honest conversation around the science. And when you said that, it reminded me of my favorite quote from The Count of Monte Cristo, which I just finished
Mm-hmm.
reading. Um, the quote is, "He spoke with so much simplicity that it was evident he spoke the truth. He was mad." And I just freaking love that. I'm like, that's exactly what I try to do. Is I want to convey these concepts to you so simply. You're like, is he like, does he actually know what he's talking about, or is he an idiot? Like, is that the depth of his knowledge? Is that how simple that is?
Yeah.
Or is he a crazy person? And the truth is, if I'm explaining it to you very simply, it's probably because I've already done like all the deep reading as we do on for this podcast. I've done all that, and I've worked my way back up to be like, okay, what is the way I should say this to you that makes the most sense and is going to have the largest impact on you to convey the overall message in a digestible format.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to get into the specifics of S&C or, healing of your muscle after a tear or whatever like that. Like that stuff is cool and all, and I can do that, but it's better if I can convey that concept to you very simply, succinctly, and you just recognize he gets it. I
Yep.
think that's super important for any coach to be able to convey those concepts quickly because you need them to be digestible. If the client, or the athlete, can't take that concept and run with it, I think you did a bad job. Like you need to be able to do
Mm-hmm.
that for that person.
Yeah.
So yeah. Um, well, let's move on to the next thing I was thinking about, which is any good coach should be open to new ideas.
Mm-hmm.
This is one that you're going to see a lot in the coaching world for strength or sports, as well as physical therapy, where you have people who say, this is the way. This is how you get someone better. They're very dogmatic. Maybe they're judgmental. Maybe they're forceful. They aren't open to considering other options, like we were just talking about. And the openness to new ideas, to me, is really a philosophy on life as much as it is for coaching. And the reason for that is it really comes down to neuroscience, where our brains are exposed to so much information all the time, especially in a professional setting when you're trying to combine many different elements in your profession into a coherent or cohesive thought process or system
Mm-hmm.
of behaving. And it helps to have those different neurons with those holding all the different information to fire in different ways all the time, because what can happen is you get new insights, you get new epiphanies when your neurons fire together differently than they normally would. And if you're the kind of person who just always does things the same way and you say this is the way for whatever reason, your level of thinking is very narrow, and you're likely
Mm-hmm.
missing a lot of potentially very helpful changes in your approach that other people like Eric and I are really open to having. And so, like, sure, there are times when I hear an idea from a coworker or a patient, I'm like, oh, that doesn't really apply here for whatever reason, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
still gonna listen. I'm still gonna like index that in the brain somewhere because that is probably going to be useful some other time with some other person. Or maybe that idea that you just exposed me to didn't help in that moment, but for some reason it just triggered this cascade of neuron firing in my brain. And I was like, oh, wait, but that actually is really helpful in this other context. and now let's run with that in this other context. And so
Mm-hmm.
openness to new ideas just leads to better thought processes, whether it's in that moment for that client or a future client. And if you're really dogmatic and really strict in your line of thinking, I think that's a very poor way to, one, live your life, but also to help your client get better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, speak for yourself on being an open, an open thinker. I'm just kidding. No, I would like to think that I'm also with you there, Christian, in terms of majority of what I practice and what I do for clients is based on the research that we read, right? But I would also like to think that, we also read research and different ideas that come out around rehab or strength and conditioning. That's like, oh, I've never thought like that before. Like this could be maybe a new avenue for success for certain people. And I mean, that's the other thing too that we have to keep in mind. Not everyone is the same. Not nearly close. No one is the same. And we need to keep in mind that there might be some out there kind of wild fetched idea that, yeah, might not be, you know, well backed with the research, but like, gosh dang it, like this person, it just helps them or it gets them to where they want to be, right? And sometimes I'll tell patients as well or clients, and it's like, hey, this actually worked really well, and maybe it worked really well really fast, and they're like, how did this happen? Like, what's the reason behind it? And I mean, this kind of might be a little counterintuitive to my previous point, but the body is so dang complex. There's so much stuff going on. We really don't give it enough credit between the musculoskeletal system, the nervous system, the vascular system. Go on and on about those different systems and how they interact. But sometimes things work. We don't really know the underlying mechanism as to why it worked. It just did. If that's more psychosocial as to why it worked, like maybe a little bit of a placebo effect. Who are we to say that placebo effects are bad or negative? If someone gets better, if someone reaches their goal, and we can objectively show that, and then at the end of the day, part of me doesn't really care how you got better. We just did, or you reached your goal, and we can objectively show that. That's what I think is also important, and not being closed off to that fact, right? Not being like, oh, you have to get better by this one avenue. Otherwise, it's not true. It's false. It couldn't happen. I think we're really shooting ourselves in the foot when we have that type of approach.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak for you on whether this is who you are, but early in my career, and even before that, my default mode has always been searching for the one best way to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I no longer have that belief because life has kicked me in the ass with that belief. It's not effective. It's not effective, and it's not reality. And I'll talk a little bit about why. In physical therapy, for example, we talk about this in the podcast. For any injury, any ailment, there is research for or against different kinds of treatments for that thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you have all this back and forth in the research saying this thing does work for this, oh no, it doesn't, oh yeah, now it does again, like that's chaotic. That leads you as a clinician to be like, okay, well, what the hell do I do? And
Yeah.
the only sensible thing to do is to recognize that there are many ways to approach a problem. And your job as the clinician is to figure out which approach this person needs right now and how to evolve that approach over time. And there isn't one right way to do it. It's just that you're trying to find the best mix of ideas for this person, and it should evolve with them. And an example of that in strength and conditioning is that there are tons of styles of exercise programming that we can do to get someone stronger. Do you follow a linear progression method? Do you follow waves or blocks? Or do you follow named approaches like 5-3-1 from Jim Wendler? Are you doing other proprietary programs that dose the exercises differently with high reps or low reps, high weight, whatever it might be? All of those different methods get people bigger or stronger or whatever you want. So it really can't be that one of them is the best. they're all doing something right. And you got to figure out, okay, what does this client need? Do they need more of that 5-3-1 approach? Is that better for their life? Is it better for their adaptation at this time? Or do they need something else? Maybe just like a true linear progression model because they don't want to think too much and it's just easier to do. It's
Hmm.
simpler, whatever it might be. So many different things can work. And as a coach, it is your job to recognize that. And you must just be open to the idea that, okay, there are many ways to do something. That's the way it's going to be. I need to know all of them or a lot of them and then figure out how to leverage them for my client success.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. If there's consistency and adherence to those different programs, likely they're all of them are going to get someone to where they want to be, or at least closer. And it's just a matter of, again, just going back to what fits your lifestyle the most. What's going to make you consistent and motivated to do it? Which approach is going to work best for you? And yeah, it just all depends on who that individual is and what they strive for and what fits their lifestyle the best. And I think that's where we're extremely lucky to be in this type of profession, that we have the ability, because the research shows that, we'll just use low back pain for an example. There's like 10 different things that can get people better with low back pain that seem to work about the same in general, non-specific low back pain. And it's kind of the same thing with coaching and training. Like there's several things that are going to get you better. It's just what fits you the best. What's going to make you the most motivated to do it and stay the most consistent with it.
Yeah, and that brings me back to the idea of putting the right systems in place for the client and then trusting in that process.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the deeper you go into a certain thought process, you get diminishing returns. So, like at some
Mm.
point, after I have a strength plan in place for a strength client, I know it's going to work. And getting way too detailed or perseverating on like, oh, do we add one more set here, one more rep there? Like, is it this exercise variation or this? Whatever it might be, doesn't really matter. They're going to get better whether I make those changes or not. And it's not really going to have a massive effect on the plan. And so that becomes less of the focus. I'm getting less relative benefit for the client by focusing on those small things at that point. And I actually should be shifting my focus more towards, oh, this person has a hard time getting into the gym for whatever reason. I need to
Mm-hmm.
focus on their consistency. Or this person is not sleeping well. They're not eating well. I got to get them to do that better. The strength part is fine. That the numbers on the paper that they're going to follow doesn't really matter anymore. I need to spend more of our coaching effort, coaching time, conversational time with that client on these other things that I know are far more important in this moment. And so
Yes.
just recognize
Mm-hmm.
that as a coach that there are diminishing returns on anything that you work on. And it's your job to figure out which things are you prioritizing, when and to what degree. That's where you really find excellent coaches because they know a lot of different things. They know all of the relative contributions to your plan, and they know how to manipulate them for your advantage.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I think part of when you're talking about like the details and whatnot, I'm just going to attribute this because I heard on a podcast from Andy Galpin, who's a strength and conditioning, muscle physiology kind of guru in that space, and he uses the analogy of a cook versus a baker, right? This could be for either like dietary needs. I think he in the podcast, this was years ago, he talked about it more in dietary needs when people are following a diet, right? Are you a cook in terms of like you're not following a very strict specific count of calories or grams and all that stuff. It's more of like, I know I need a little bit of this, I need a little bit of that, and you're kind of mixing it together and it's a little bit looser. And some people love that. Some people get overly stressed if you're like, you need 500 calories from this, you need 20 grams from that. And it's like, it just stresses the crap out of people. And it's the same thing with strength and conditioning programs. You can play around with the numbers in terms of higher intensity and do a little bit less reps, or maybe let's start out a little bit lower intensity, do a little more reps, or let's do this. You can mix and match those different things, and then you'll have other individuals who are like, I need you to tell me the time I'm getting to the gym, the time I'm leaving the gym, and that's more that baker analogy. You need very specific measurements for it to come out as a successful piece. And it just depends on who the client is and how they want that to be structured. Anywhere from the physical structure of the program to, maybe the advice that we give or the conversations we have, just depends on the person and how their brain likes to process and, organize things.
You're just creating the conditions for success, like
Absolutely.
you said in the beginning. So the thing I want to finish on that you touched on already is the last things I think are really important um, to be a successful coach are going to be understanding, and this is probably the most important, honestly, save the best for last, understands
Perfect.
that building a relationship on mutual trust and respect and humility are more likely to lead to success for your client. It's like anything in life, being likable goes a long way. How do you become likable with your client? You meet them where they're at. You you show that you are genuinely interested in them. You truly do care about them and their goals
Mm-hmm.
and their life, their job, their family, their friends. Like you're investing a lot of yourself into them because you want to convey to them that like you're here for them. You've got their
Mm-hmm.
back. You genuinely care. And not just like showing and pretending. I mean, like I literally do care about my clients in that way. Like I want the best for them. They are taking time out of their day. They're giving me money to help
Mm-hmm.
them with a thing. I owe them that respect. And I want
Yeah.
them to know that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then the thing that I want to finish on is going to be going off of humility. We are not always going to be the best person for you. I am not going to be everyone's therapist. I cannot be. Just what I said is always going to be true. Whether you're my client or any of my clients, I am going to do my very best for you. I'm going to invest whatever I can in you. But at some point, like you just might not like me, whatever it might be. You just don't like my approach. You don't like my face, or you like this other person, my colleague's approach or face better. And there's just something about our personalities or whatever else is going on that isn't mixing well. And you'd be better served by someone else. And I like to make sure that I strive to recognize that early on because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to help everyone and take everyone's business and everyone's money. I need to make sure that our relationship is going to be good for you. And if I detect that there's just something off about it, I want to bring that up politely, of course, and just see if it's genuinely a thing or if I'm reading too much into this. But oftentimes it's
Mm-hmm.
not. It is a real thing, and maybe you just need to be with someone else, and that's totally cool. I want to make sure we figure that out sooner than later so that you are being helped by the most appropriate person sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a great point to end it on because when it comes down to it, I think it's really important that the clients know they're the ones with the power. They're the ones spending the money. They're the ones putting in the time and effort, right? And it's important for people who are looking for a physical therapist or a strength conditioning coach or whatever it is, you deserve the best that's going to fit you. Don't settle for something or someone that you're not completely bought in on. And yeah, for whatever it is, if it's personality or if it's philosophy or their approach, whatever it is, it's important that you find the person that you trust and that you believe in that are going to help again guide you to your goals or your rehab or whatever it is to get you better. I think that's really important because I think sometimes we just can settle, right? It's like, well, this is the only strength coach I know. This is the only PT I know. This is the, and it's like, I guess I'm just rolling with them whether I like it or not. But that's not the case. You have to make it more pushing this narrative, I guess. You have the autonomy and you have the right to choose who you want to give your time and money to. That's really about what it is. And I think both Christian and I would encourage you to find that person that fits you the best. And hopefully, we hope it's with us at Flex Metal. We strive to be able to offer those things for many, many different people. But yeah, at the end of the day, if it's not us, we want to help you find the person that it will be to help reach those goals or get you to where you want.
Exactly, it is. I don't want to just like say, hey, sorry, it's not working out. Go figure something else out. No, I also want to help you with that.
Yeah.
Eric and I make connections all the time. We're trying to get to know more therapists, more coaches in our respective regions because we want to have more connections for you. Oh, like, okay, maybe you need this other kind of coach. I know 3 people that could do that. I think this one of those 3 people is probably better for you. Let's start there. So I
Mm-hmm.
can give them a call ahead of time and say, hey, I got this client who would be potentially a good fit for you. I just want to just triage that, set up that pathway for you all. That's
Mm-hmm.
me showing you that I really still do care about you. I want the best for you, and I've gone out of my way to make these connections to help make sure that you have more options that could be better for you.
Yeah.
That's something. There's a really famous marketer. His name is Seth Godin, who is all about that. He's like, if you aren't sending clients away to your competitors, you aren't doing your job right because
Mm.
not everyone is the right fit for you. Maybe they're a better fit for your competitor. And competitor not meaning like a bad competition thing. Like you're not enemies. You're in the business together. You just serve different people. And it's my job to help figure that pathway out for you. And I'm happy to refer people to other clinics, other therapists, my colleague at the next table over. Maybe the client's going to go from me to you, Eric, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. I just want the best for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. No, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. It's a great way to, wrap that up and, I guess wrap up the podcast. I think kind of like we started out, like this was more broad strokes, and there's obviously a lot more in-depth things that we could talk about, as with a lot of the podcasts that we do. So if there's anything, individuals listening to this that are, curious about things or want more information on, please reach out, and we'd love to discuss more things and, discuss whether or not like this type of an avenue, in the coaching realm would be a good fit or not, or where we can help you out going forward. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Christian. Well, you have a good rest of your day, man, and we'll talk later.
All right. See ya.
See ya.